Sent to the Adjutant General orders issued in the Creek Nation with special orders issued in Florida. March 2nd. Sent off expresses to Fort Brooke. Fort Drane and Fort Call instructed Major Childs in relation to soldiers of the 3rd Infantry at his post. Wrote to Major Cross on the subject of very private affairs, as well as on public matters. Gave leave of absence to Lieutenant Colonel Foster for 30 days in consequence of severe domestic afflictions. Lieutenant Chambers made an experiment with an Indian rubber boat on a pond in the camp. It was found to be capable of carrying 40 men. Cloud, one of the hostile chiefs, and several of the hostile warriors witnessed the experiment. Hostile Indians come to camp every day with venison and turkeys and other proceeds of the chase. Let go to Black Creek he rode my sorrel horse. March 3rd. A heavy and steady rain commenced about an hour before day and continued until 11 o'clock. Several hostile Indians came in who had not been in camp previously. 2 hastily returned from Tampa Bay, having been permitted to visit their relations who were prisoners. The train came in from Tampa consisting of upwards of 80 wagons. Wrecked a letter from the Adjutant General, acknowledging several communications and copies of orders, and informing of the approbation of the Secretary of War of General J.'s order retaining the 6th Regiment in Florida, and authorizing him to retain it as long as the service should require it. G.L. Read the conclusion of General C.'s defense in the intelligence. He has embodied first truth enough to mystify the public to produce upon the public mind the same effect as falsehood. March 4th. Jim Boy called to see GLJ and to report his return from Tampa. Showed him letters which he had received from the Creek country. Complained of the conduct of Boyd. General J directed Captain Lurl to investigate the complaint. Abraham came in and reports that Jumper had arrived with his family, and that Davy or Hollock Tucci would be in today. Alligator has not come in. Abraham says his family is sick. Philip had been heard from. It is reported that he had many of his men wounded in the battle with Lieutenant Colonel Fanning, and that he was compelled to remain behind to take care of them. Jumper sent General J a message that he desired to come in and shake hands with him, and that he would talk to him tomorrow. The conduct of the Indians is not entirely satisfactory. Jumper and Ho. Latouche requested tents which were ordered. Women have come in today for the first time. Jumper and Holot Tucci came in, and it was arranged that they should meet General J in council tomorrow. March 5th. Holot Tucci, Jumper, Cloud, and several subchiefs came in today. General J with the officers of his staff, the principal officers of the army, and the principal friendly Indian chiefs. Met them in council. General J inquired whether Micanopy had come in. Holot Tucci answered that the time allowed was so short, and he was so unwieldy, that he could not come, but that he had given full power to him, Jumper, and Cloud to act for him, and that he would notify what they should agree to. He said, when I first visited you I had no instructions from Micanopy. Jumper's son then had his talk, but he was taken sick on the way and could not come. Now I have authority from him to agree to all you require. General J. Does Micanopy understand that emigration is an indispensable condition of peace? Yes, and he agreed to it. He understood that his property would be secured to him. He said that Micanopy directed him to say that when the next broken days were arranged he would come. General J. said it was trifling to speak of more broken days. 2 distinct times and places of meeting had been agreed on. Micanopy disappointed him in both. The next time of meeting must be for all the people to assemble in camp prepared to emigrate. You were told when last here that Micanopy must come. Jumper said Holot Tucci was authorized to sign for Micanopy. General J. Have he and you full powers to treat? Jumper: yes. General J. Have you power to treat for the whole nation? Jumper. We wish time to collect the whole nation and make a fresh treaty. General J. That cannot be done. If you desire peace you can have it. If war you can have it. My troops are ready. Those who do not come in when required will be attacked immediately. How many days will be necessary to collect the people? Jumper. 10 days to assemble the men at Mikanopes, but I cannot tell how long to collect the Mikazukis. General J. Would the Mikazukis consider themselves bound by your engagements, or would they act as you desire them? Jumper. The governor, Mikanope, has conceded to emigrate the small chiefs and all under his rule. The Creeks who are among us will give up with the rest. The Mikasukis cannot hold the country. General J. How long will it take the Indians to collect their cattle and property? Jumper. I cannot tell. General J. I shall expect them to bring their families to Tampa Bay, and then they can return and collect their cattle. Jumper. This is not as we wish. You seem to desire to hurry us off by force. Allow us time. We have given our word. It is our bond. We will collect our property and then move off. We can communicate with you in the meantime. General J. We do not manage business in that way. Mention sometime in about which you can ready. Jumper. I think it to sell our cattle and other property will take till near fall. General J. I cannot listen to this. You must go at once, and I will pay a fair price for your cattle and ponies. Jim Boy and the other friendly chiefs here made a few remarks on urging the Seminoles to agree to the terms of General J and move at once to the west. Jumper then said, I wish to consult the Creek chiefs Jim Boy, John Hossany, and Tustanush Harjo to know how the business was done in their nation. Today we will talk with them, and we will agree on what we will do tonight. We are tired of fighting and will not take up arms against the whites again. We do not expect to remain in the country, but agree to go. But we wish to go by land. That General J replied could not be permitted. Jim Boy came to General J in the evening to ascertain his views. He with the other friendly chiefs arranged among themselves to visit the Seminole camp tomorrow morning. They were prevented from going out this evening by the severe indisposition of John Hoswany's son. 6. The friendly chiefs visited the Seminoles, had a long talk with them, and returned to camp perfectly satisfied that they were sincere in their wish for peace and their promise to emigrate. The Seminole chiefs came in about 11 o'clock, and General J met them in council, when they agreed for themselves and the nation that hostilities should cease and should not be resumed, that the whole nation should immediately emigrate to the country assigned to them west of the Mississippi. That until they emigrate they should place in the hands of the general commanding hostages for the faithful performance of their engagements, that they will immediately withdraw to the south of the Hillsborough, and that all found north of that river, and a line drawn due east from Fort Foster to the ocean, without the permission of the general commanding, after the 1st of April, are to be considered hostile. Micanopy is to be one of the hostages. General J stipulated on the part of the United States that the Seminoles should be secure in their persons and property, that their Negroes shall accompany them west of the Mississippi, that their cattle and ponies shall be paid for at a fair valuation, that the expenses of the movement west should be defrayed by the United States, that the chiefs, warriors, and their families shall be subsisted from the time they assemble in camp near Tampa Bay, until they arrive at their homes west of the Mississippi, and 12 months thereafter. To assemble in the camp to be designated by the commanding general as soon as possible, and at all events went by the 10th of April. All the advantages of the treaty at Payne's Landing not enumerated in the present capitulation to be secured to them. It was agreed that Micanopy should come in 9 days from the 7th, and 9 broken sticks representing the number of days were given to Holot Tucci, who agreed to see Micanopy and report to him what he had done. March 7th, Jumper brought in the hostages, and their names were taken, and they were directed to remain with John Hossany, G.L. J. had long conferences with Holot Tucci, Cloud, Jumper, and Abraham. They informed him that the Creeks who came down and joined them last summer urged them not to surrender, saying that we had violated our promises to them, that many of them surrendered on the appearance that they would be well treated and protected, but that we immediately put them into jails and loaded them with chains. General J directed Lieutenant Chambers to notice the statement. 8. The hostages were missing this morning. Abraham gave information of it. Cloud, hearing of it, offered to remain in their places. Jumper pursued them, having promised to bring them in. He and Cloud left others in their places until they should be brought in. Abraham complained that Major Fagan had cheated him out of $280. General J gave him $50. Ola Tucci took leave and departed. John Hassani's son, a fine youth, died last night. He was buried today with the honors of war, and according to the ceremonies of the Episcopal Church. March 9th. Abraham came in and reported that Jumper had returned without the hostages in consequence of his horse having broken down. General J ordered that he be furnished with a fresh horse. Abram took leave and departed. Gl. J read today the decision of the President on the proceedings of the Court of Inquiry in the case of General Scott at Frederick. The course pursued by the court was most extraordinary. They condemned General J unheard through his conduct was not before them for investigation. General J read a notice of the remarks of W. Preston on the subject of the Court of Inquiry. He hopes they may investigate the matter. He apprehends nothing from investigation. Cloud took leave today and promised to have his people assembled in a few days. John Hassani called with Yoholo Harjo and a Creek who came down last summer. The Creek informed General J that Nokozi Yoholo with all the hostile Creeks would come in, that Yoholo Harjo had informed them that General J had taken him out of jail and knocked the irons off him. Many of them, he said, had fled and left their families behind. Their families had been removed to the west, and they desired to follow. John Hassani said that Koi Harjo would also come in, and a Tallahassee chief declared that his people would also be in. He received W.F.M. Taylor, who had been some days in camp, called to take leave of General J. He goes to Tampa tomorrow. March 10th. General J with a small escort went today to the forks of the Weethalok Ku-Chi. The water at the junction of the rivers is deep. A high bluff or sandhill is within 150 yards of the junction but near the water. The land is low. It is covered with some grass, now in seed. The party returned at 2 o'clock and found Jumper. He had overtaken the runaway hostages. They are to be in tomorrow, and he has determined to remain in camp until they come in. General J has ordered subsistence today for the Indians. An express arrived with dispatches from Gel. Hernandez, Lieutenant Colonel Crane, and Lit. Colonel Brown and Gel H send the statements of 2 Negroes who had been 8 or 9 months with the Indians. March 11th. Jumper came to inform General J that 4 of the hostages had arrived, that the 5th was hunting white cranes and would be in tomorrow, and that the 6th was detained by Abram to help him hunt his cattle. He was told that all must come in, that 2 of Cloud's men would be retained in their places until they should come in. General J was informed by W. Odom of Alabama that the families of the Indian warriors were very much annoyed by the whites in Alabama, in consequence of the men at Echo Harjo's camp being suspected of having joined the hostile Indians in the swamps. These Indians had been taken to Tuskegee and camped within the pickets. Wrote to Colonel Crowell and Captain Page on the subject of the Indian families. Wrote to Major Cross on the subject of the Court of Inquiry and of the cause of the Indian difficulties. Major Wilson arrived with the 4th Infantry, having left a detachment at Fort Clinch. 12. General J wrote to General Hernandez on the subject of the Chief Philip and requested the Ind. Boy Alec as a guide. Directed that communications to and from General H be forwarded immediately. Wrote to Governor Call on the subject of Tiger Tail. That warrior came in today with more than 100 of his people. The 2 hostages have not come in. 2 of Cloud's men are still retained. March 13th. Some of the officers of the visited Tiger Tail's camp, W. Cooley, whose family was killed by the Indians near Cape Florida, came in with dispatches from Colonel Crane. He has been an Indian trader. GLJ expected to derive much useful information from him, but found that he could communicate nothing of any importance. 14th. Wrote to Colonel Bamford on the subject of the stores of his department. Captain was written to on the same subject. Ordnance men to be retained at Black Creek. Wrote to Captain Crabb of the Navy commanding at Tampa Bay and sent him a copy of the capitulation of the Seminoles. Colonel Crane and Lieutenant Clark written to in relation to the horses arriving at Black Creek 200 for the dragoons and the remainder to be used for other purposes. Lieutenant Mackenzie directed to return the ordnance stores recently arrived to the arsenal, and to send damaged arms to Baton Rouge or Mount Vernon. Jim Boy called this evening and informed General J. that he had ascertained from one of his warriors that Captain B.C.E. was transpiring with the hostile Indians. A nephew of Cloud had been allowed to go to Tampa Bay to see his sister a prisoner. Captain B. informed him that the English were raising a force to support the Seminoles, that it was the intention of General J. to take the warriors to New Orleans, put them on boats and employ them against the English, but he would separate them from their families. March 15th. Employed W. Cooley to visit certain Indians on the coast and ascertain whether guides for the interior of the country are among them. Prepared dispatches to Volusia and Fort Milton. Also for Black Creek and St. Augustine. Wrote to the Ceci of War, also to Major Cross. General J had a talk with Tiger Tail. He agreed to go to Powell and invite him to come in. T.T. says 100 Miccosukee warriors have crossed the Sewanee, that a part of the Talisees are with them. That they are employed in the high hammocks preparing compti. He has sent his brother to call them in. 16. Micanopy is expected today at 11 o'clock a.m. He has not come. 3 o'clock p.m. Micanopy has arrived in the neighborhood. Tony came in accompanied by an Indian, with a message from the chief. He was sick and cannot come to camp today but promises to come in tomorrow. General J send him provisions and blankets. Abraham came in today to meet Micanopy. Alligator is with Micanopy, but Philip, it is understood, has not come. Tony said Cloud is engaged in collecting the Negroes and Indians and will move in a few days to Tampa. 4 Indians of Tiger Tail's party came in today and reported the arrival of about 40 men, women, and children of the Tallahassees in the neighborhood. Provisions were sent to them. Charlie E. Mathla's family came in several days ago, and are with their relation, the friendly chief John Hopwanee. GLJ had a long talk with Abraham. Not satisfactory. He evidently has information which he is unwilling to communicate. March 17th. Tony came in this morning and reports Micanopy better. He is preparing to come in. Sent him provisions. At 11 o'clock he came in. Accompanied by Alligator and several Indians, he informed General Jesup that he had come today merely to pay his respects to him, and that he would tomorrow transact business. He had sent messengers to Philip but had not heard from him. The messenger not having returned, he and Alligator, with Jim Boy, a friendly chief, dined with General Jesup. Micanopy complained to Gel J that the Indians had been greatly imposed upon by the white men. He stated that the wolves were numerous in the country and often destroyed the young cattle of the citizens, and that the loss was often charged to the Indians and deducted from their annuities. Micanopy and Alligator came to spend the night in camp. March 18th. Met Micanopy today in council, read and explained the articles of the capitulation. He stated that he had authorized the chiefs, Jumper, Holatuchi, and Yaholoachi to sign that instrument for him. He agreed to every article and formally ratified it. He, Alligator, and John Hoponi, a friendly chief, dined with General J. Had a talk with Alligator after dinner in relation to the movement of his people to Tampa and thence. 2 Talassi chiefs came in today, Akathlock Emathla and Holalji Harjo Chi, also some 40 or 50 warriors. Wrecked a communication from Lieutenant Bell commanding at Fort Clinch. Reports that the fires had nearly disappeared in the Wakasasa. Micanopy and Alligator, with Abram, spent the whole evening with General Jesup. Micanopy asked for Cooper's family, and Alligator for a relation of Cloud and himself. General J. informed them that until the treaty concerned be in the course of execution, the prisoners could not be surrendered. Read and explained the treaty to Micanopy. March 19th. Micanopy came early this morning to converse with General J. He said that he was ready to remain as a hostage, but that if he were to remain, his people, and particularly those whose chiefs had not been here, would believe that he had been improperly detained, and he feared that it might prevent them from executing the treaty. He expressed his acquiescence in the decision of General J in regard to the prisoners. On inquiring of the interpreters, General J ascertained that a mistake had been made by them in communicating with Jumper and Alligator in regard to Cooper's family. They misunderstood him and stated to Jumper that when Micanopy should sign a treaty acknowledging the former treaty and consenting to emigrate, the family would be given up to him, but that they would be given to no one else. In consequence of this misunderstanding, General J considered it the best policy to commit the widow and child of Cooper to Micanopy.
Communications with Commander Dallas and Captain Crab. W. Blank. How Abraham gave me information of the movement to Mobile Point of the Indians' families, apprehensive that the Seminoles may hear it. Blank. It known to them would impair their confidence in our promises. March 20th. Wrote Captain Page, blank, him to Tampa Bay, Lieutenant Major Millens, to investigate true circumstances attending these outrages committed on the Indians in Alabama. Lieutenant Jim Bays, Indian, to Tampa. Jim remained with me and dined with Micanopy. Micanopy took leave and promised to join me at Tampa in 16 days. Abraham returned with a message from Micanopy and the subject of the Negroes of citizens. It was arranged that they not be brought in and delivered at Fort Armstrong, and that they would not be brought south of the Withlacoochee. 21. Received a communication from Captain West, negativity, that the survivors of Fort Foster with the blank of the United States ships commanded might be ordered to join. The order blank to blank the blank Captain Cross was written on the subject. A Major Childs responds that he had obtained a citizen of Fort Armstrong who was in search of Negroes. He was entrusted not to permit any citizens to blank south of that part. P.S. There was no translation or transcript for these 2 pages, so I had to say it myself, and there was a couple words that I had to put blanks in because I couldn't understand what was written.
March 22nd. Ordered Major Zanzinger to relieve Lieutenant Lieb and directed the latter to report to Captain Crab. Communicated with Captain Crab, Captain Mix, and Lieutenant Lieb on the subject of the garrison commanded by Lieutenant Lieb and the Marines of the Concord. The Indian chief have heard of the difficulties in which their families have been involved in Alabama. General J has no official information on the subject. He had some difficulties in satisfying the chiefs. March 23rd. A son of the chief Philip came in. Also Cujo's sons Philip had sent for Abaika. He would have visited me had he been able, but, as his son says, he has been badly burned by his clothes taking fire. The son says all the Seminoles and Creeks in the country will obey the orders of Micanopy. He will call tomorrow in order to have a talk with John Hoponi and Yoholo Harjo. 24. Philip's son called on General J. John Hoponi and Yoholo Harjo met him and conversed with him for some time. They advised that all the Indians go to the west. To quiet the fears of the Indians as to their treatment, should they come in, General J had recourse to the Bible. He informed the young Indian that this book contained the word of the Great Spirit. And referring to the death of Absalom by Joab, he added that it was forbidden in that book to revenge or punish in peace. For acts done in war, he remarked that the principles contained in the book were the rule of conduct for good men, that bad men only disregarded them. This seemed to satisfy the Indian, and he promised to relate to his father as Gl. J had said to him. A Negro who came in last night reports that Powell and Sam Jones are going to join Philip for the purpose of accompanying him to Micanopy's camp, and of accepting the terms of the treaty. Present of tobacco and a blanket and some small articles was given to the young man, and he departed on his return. March 25th sent off a train today for Tampa. Wrote to Captain Crabb of the Navy in relation to the situation of officers at Pensacola. Determined to send off Jim Boy and Echo Harjo. Wrote to the Gov. of South Carolina. March 26th wrote to the Commandant of the South Carolina Volunteers, sent Major Morris to Tampa Bay to make arrangements for the discharge of Jim Boy's battalion. Wrote to Adjutant General. 27. Wrote to Lieutenant Colonel Miller on the subject of Cooley's conduct. Directed an investigation, fears he must be sent away. Sent off an express to the Black Creek, nothing of importance from any quarter. GL was informed by E that the Honorable W_T of the SO had inquired of him when on a visit to Parks whether General W_ would not be proper person to take command in Florida should GL J fail. This opens a there are intrigues and intriguers at Washington. GLJ has been their dupe, and they now intend to make him their victim. He is not to be put down so readily, as they will find before he is done with them. March 28th. Expected Abraham today with the Indian Negroes, as well as those of the citizens. He did not come. An express arrived last night, nothing of importance received. March 29th. The paymaster and quartermaster went to Tampa. GLJ received a letter from his family. Abraham has not come in. Alligator's arrival at Tampa reported. Directed that a further supply of subsistence be sent to Fort Dade. 30. A train came up with forage. A detachment marched to Volusia. Ordered Major Nelson to proceed to the Ocklawaha and build a bridge. Several Tallahassee Indians came in today who had not been in before. Echo Emathla had not been heard from. Tiger Tail had crossed on to see the chiefs on the St. John's and invite them to come in. 31. Major Nelson marched this morning. The Indian chief brother of